The following is a special presentation of 1330 WFIN and 95.5 FM.
Welcome to tonight's political forum on 1330 WFIN, WFIN.com, and now at 95.5 FM.
Tonight's forum presented by the Hancock County Republican Party.
Good evening. Welcome to the latest in our series of candidate forums ahead of the March primary election, which is now just 1 month away. I'm Chris Oakes, and this evening we are featuring the two individuals running for the Republican primary in the 83rd District seat, the Ohio House of Representatives. The candidates are incumbent John Cross and challenger Ty Matthews, and welcome to both of you this evening. As with past forums of this type, most of the questions, which neither candidate has seen in advance, will be directed generally to both of you. We will allow 2 minutes for responses. Follow-up questions or further discussion between the candidates will be allotted 1 minute. And with that, let's begin with 2 minutes each for opening remarks, and we'll begin with Mr. Cross.
Thank you very much, Chris, and thank you to WFIN for hosting this great forum. We enjoy this opportunity to talk with you all tonight. First, I want to welcome my family that's here, Carson, Christina, and Connor. And we'd like to thank the Findlay and Hancock County community for welcoming us to your beautiful community. We love it here, and we are getting settled in nicely here. It is an honor to serve you for 3 terms in the Ohio House of Representatives as your conservative champion for this district. This campaign I'm defining based upon the 3 key words of our campaign: experience, leadership, and results. The mission 6 years ago has been the same when I first started, is to keep Ohio safer, stronger, and open for business. And I'm pleased to report to you, in my eyes, that I believe Ohio is better today than it was 6 years ago. We have reduced regulations. We have reduced and cut your taxes. We have a AAA rating by all 3 creditors in the state of Ohio. We, by law, unlike Congress, by law, have to balance the budget. We have maxed out the rainy day fund. We have invested your tax dollars wisely and well. We have fixed an unconstitutional school funding formula, now in its second phase, making it a constitutional funding formula that goes all the way back to 1996. We have worked to make Ohio a business-friendly state. Recently, they look at the business friendliness every year, and then this year they've ranked Ohio a top 10 business-friendly state to start and do business in. We are preventing a woke culture from entering the bounds of Ohio, and we are fighting every day to protect our life and protect our liberties, and certainly we always are in the pursuit of happiness. As far as leadership goes, I've worked really hard by serving on our finance committee all 3 terms. Was that a ding? We're done? Okay. 2 minutes. There we go.
2 minutes.
Thank you, Chris.
Mr. Cross, thank you very much.
Done.
And Mr. Matthews?
Yep, thank you, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. And I just wanted to thank each and every one of you for being here tonight. Thank you for being involved and concerned about local politics. I'm just going to take the last minute and 45 seconds here to tell you a bit about myself and why I'm running. I grew up in Arlington. I'm a proud Arlington Red Devil. I graduated in 2013, and after college I went on to Cedarville University, which is a small Christian university near Dayton, Ohio. I most recently just got my master's degree in executive leadership from Liberty University. After college, I went on to work at the state treasurer's office, first as his special assistant and then as policy aide. During that time, and currently, I am serving in the Ohio Army National Guard. First, I enlisted as a chaplain assistant, and then I commissioned as an infantry officer. By far, the hallmark of my military career has been my recent deployment to Iraq. Overseas, I served as a battle captain. There are 3 of us on the base. We were responsible for the overall coordination of the base and the embassy in Baghdad. That incorporated target engagement authority. There's only 3 of us on the base that had that. And what that means, if there's a hostile air track, airplane, drone, I was one of 3 people with the authorization to engage that air track. And I'm a conservative. You've seen the signs all around town. Those 3 stars stands for God, country, and family. And that's what I live my life by, and also what I believe this country was founded upon. And I am running because I love this community. I love this country. This community, this country has given me everything. And what better way than serving those same people in that community?
Thank you. Let's begin with the biggest elephant in the room with respect to this campaign. That is the debate over House Bill 2 and the earmarks it contains, totaling half of the money from the one-time Strategic Community Investment Fund. Mr. Matthews, you have sharply criticized Mr. Cross for what you describe on social media as false information and misleading statements regarding that bill. Please expand on that.
First of all, I want to say I am not against grant money. I hope those tax dollars come to our district. I really do. But again, and my message throughout this is don't take my word for it. Right here, I have the memo from the Senate President Huffman saying that there was never a deal made. I've got fellow state representatives saying there was no deal made. Even in my opponent's press release, it alludes to that he secured a record amount of money. Nothing is secured. Nothing is. There's a process. That process still has to go through the Senate, and it has to go to the governor. And I've talked to other senators, and I encourage you to also talk to the other senators. There's a process to this, and typically you meet before you have negotiations, and I won't get into the nitty-gritty. But there is 16 counties here in Ohio that received 0 money back. It was political maneuvering, and I think it's pretty clear when you look at the facts. And I encourage you all to look into it and not just take my word for it.
Mr. Cross, how do you respond to those criticisms?
Well, it's not a day that doesn't go by that someone doesn't criticize legislation that goes before the Ohio House. Every even year, we do a capital budget. And because the state of Ohio was in a good financial position, as I talked about, there was a $700 million carryover in our funds. We could do 2 things with it. We could give it back to all of you, which some people would like, and that's probably about, yep. We'll be glad to write you a $31 check, because that's what it equates to, is $31 per taxpayer. Or what the House and Senate agreed to, because my opponent wasn't in the room, but the finance chairman of the Senate, the finance chairman of the House were in the room, and the deal was, we'll split it in half. The Senate gets $350, the House gets $350, and we'll start to work on capital budget-like projects. And so we're pleased over the last several months to reach out to a lot of folks who are in need of this money. This is not Columbus's money. This is your money. This is your money that you send to Columbus. And it's our job to fight like heck to bring that money back home. One of the things I talk about often is, I've lost track, but over $100 million of your tax funds we have worked hard and fought to bring back here to work for our district, whether it's school funding, flood mitigation, community projects, law enforcement, safety. We've worked really hard. So the good news is we passed House Bill 2, and that's a real, live, living document. There's $9.7 million earmarked for our projects right here in the 83rd District. Close to $3 million of that is earmarked for projects here in Findlay. And I cannot wait this summer to bring big checks back home and bring your money back home, because when we pass this bill, and the reason why we're trying to pass this bill right now is it takes 90 days after the bill is signed by the governor for those dollars to come through. So we're asking the Senate to get to work, pass their version of the budget, get the governor to sign it, and then we'll deliver the money, rightly so, right back here to the 83rd District.
As a follow-up, Mr. Matthews, you were mentioned at the outset that you are not opposed to grants. Do you take issue with any of the projects that have been designated to receive funding in HB 2?
No, absolutely not. And I hope they receive their funding. And to go back to what my opponent just said, there is a memo out here. And this isn't even my words. This is dated February 7th, 2024, from Senate President Matt Huffman. Quote, "To be clear, there is no such agreement. The bill passed by the House did not include negotiations or discussions with members of the Senate or with the Senate President. Approving the large spending bill without additional debate would be irresponsible in the abdication of duties of the Senate. Normally, both chambers work together to create an agreed-upon bill. For unknown reasons, the House chose to break that process." And I'm reading between the lines, and I'm saying political maneuvering. Again, I am not against grants, and I'm not against any of that money coming back here. It's just when you have, again, for those on the radio, I'm holding up a picture here of my opponent presenting $500,000 to other organizations. I mean, that alludes to that's secured, that's guaranteed. I don't want these organizations that work hard for our community to make our community a better place to get burnt on this. So what I'm doing is I'm just raising a red flag here. Don't budget for these funds, because it has a process. And from, again, my opponent's colleagues in the House and in the Senate, I urge you all to call them. They will echo what I'm saying. They will say, pump the brakes, take a breather. The Senate has to do their own thing. They have an application process open until April 8th. I have 20 seconds here, so I'm going to be really, really brief on this. Again, 16 counties did not receive any of their taxpayer dollars back. Yeah, I would love Hancock, Hardin, and Port Logan County to get all this fund, right? But when we look at this as Ohioans, that is our taxpayer dollars. And to be fair, every county should have a seat at that table.
And Mr. Cross, what assurances can you give that the projects set to receive funding in HB2 will ultimately receive those full amounts in the final bill that eventually clears the Senate and lands on the governor's desk?
Yeah, well, the best guarantee is the Speaker of the House basically saying if these projects don't get funded in the House, nothing gets funded. We can easily just return the money and give you $31 each. See, what my opponent is doing is he's falling for the traps. First, when you go to the Ohio House, you don't work for the Ohio Senate. You work for the Ohio House. You work for the people of the 83rd District. President Huffman can write memos all day long, but I don't pay attention to them because it's the business of the House to debate and argue and fight for what the Senate may agree or disagree. Senator McCauley and I have a great working relationship. Doesn't mean we always agree on things, but we work things out. You are just watching a negotiation happen on the front page of the newspaper because it's politics, it's political season, it's silly season. It's no secret that Senator Huffman's termed out. He's coming to the Ohio House and wants to be the Speaker of the House. And my opponent is a vote for President Huffman. So it is very clear that politics is at play. Now, who's here tonight? The Kenton mayor, who's going to receive $500,000 for a new fire truck. And the mayor Kenton told everybody very crystal clear that she told council that she knew exactly what the Ohio House was doing. She knew exactly what the commitment from the Ohio House is. You can ask the mayor, you can ask Ohio Northern University, you can ask the YMCA. What we need to do is collectively rally behind these projects and these community members because they've worked hard for this. They deserve this money. I'll continue to work hard and negotiate with the Senate. But like I said, we will get this done. We've delivered results since I've been there for 6 years. And Chris, we're looking forward to getting this bill signed by the governor and delivering results and basically putting politics aside and getting people's money back home. This is what it's all about. It's your money. We're going to fight like hell to get it back here and support projects that need it. These communities need it. These people need it. And that's why you sent me to Columbus, to fight like heck to bring our dollars back home.
There have been accusations that House Bill 2 played favorites with funding projects in districts that supported Jason Stephens in his bid for House Speaker over Derek Merrin. Mr. Cross, you were among those who supported Mr. Stephens in that vote, a move that angered many hardline conservatives. Explain your support for Speaker Stephens to those who were angry at that vote.
Well, it's pretty simple. Jason Stephens is a great conservative leader for the House. And the reason why we wanted to back him is because we knew we would have an adult in the room that had the maturity and the foresight to make sure that they could lead the Ohio House. Being Speaker of the House is certainly not an easy job, something that I thought about doing myself, but then did not do and backed Mr. Stephens to be the Speaker. You're seeing the same thing unplay in Washington, D.C. when some Republicans kicked out Kevin McCarthy and put in this new Speaker of the House. We just made our decision early on that Speaker Stevens was the right person. And I'll tell you why he's the right person for our district is because he cares about Northwest Ohio. Of the 5 members of the House leadership team, there are 2 members from Northwest Ohio. Jim Hoops, who serves as the majority whip from Napoleon area, Northwest Ohio, and myself as the assistant majority leader. To have your member of the House serve in leadership puts you all at the table where the decisions are going to be made, where the money decisions are going to be made, the policy decisions are going to be made. We don't give participation trophies away in the Ohio House. We don't give, oh, you're a good legislator, you're going to get $9.7 million. Every legislator, all 99 members, have to fight for their bills, they have to fight for their money, they have to fight for their districts. And to say that there are 16 counties that I don't know how many legislative districts that would be, because some counties are multiple counties per district. But I thought we did a very nice job spreading the money wisely and well throughout Ohio. And I'll end with this. Jay Edwards, the finance chairman, 2 years ago, he's the finance chairman today. 2 years ago, he got $0 when Speaker Cupp was the speaker. And today, he's now the finance chairman in charge of that budget. So it always changes. Things can change depending upon the General Assembly.
Mr. Matthews, on the question of the House Speaker vote, would you have supported Mr. Marin for Speaker, and what is your rationalization for that decision?
Yeah, absolutely, and there's a lot to unpack right here with what was just said over here, and I want to talk on that just for a second before hitting that, is, again, look up the facts. Democrats only control 32 of the seats, and virtually every single member received funding. Those 16 counties, there were people that didn't support Jason Stevens. I've got more documentation up here for those on the radio showing what they call it the Blue 22 bailout. Every single person that is being challenged, every incumbent that's being challenged, received a large amount of this money, and 16 counties received nothing. Going back to the speaker issue, absolutely, I would have supported Derek Marin. Why? Because I'm a man of my word. If I give you my word in caucus that I'm going to vote a certain way, and you go on the floor, and you betray the party, you betray our community, that's what happens. You get censured by the Ohio Republican Party, and you lose the Ohio Republican Party endorsement. And that's what happened to my opponent. Again, I'm going to be clear and concise throughout tonight. Words can be fluffy. Just read between the lines. When we talk about what happened to McCarthy, trying to compare that to here, it's fluff. Look through the words. Quite frankly, I'm tired of politicians doing one thing and saying one thing and doing another. Let's be clear and concise on what's actually going on.
Mr. Cross, response?
Well, we're just ready to talk about relevant issues. This issue is just inside baseball that happens at the State House, Chris. We've talked about on your radio show. What people don't want to talk about, or what people are really not interested in, is the politics and the back and forth. Like I said, I've been there the last 3 terms where we've had a speakership battle every time. When I ran the first time, there was a speakership battle. There was a speakership battle the second time and the third time. This is politics at its finest. What people care about is, what are you doing for us to make our days better? What are you trying to get accomplished? What are you doing to bring back money home? How are you making good conservative policy in the State House? And I think that's where voters are going to continue to support my reelection, because they know we get the job done. We know that we are there for them as a good conservative champion. And all this stuff that they talk about, this, I guess, particularly speakership vote, must be a big deal to some, but in my district, people either don't know about it or don't care.
And a follow-up for Mr. Matthews on this question. Was this battle over the speaker, which was acrimonious at the time, was that one of the driving factors in your decision to seek this seat at this time?
It was one of them, but yeah, I think listen, I think what happened here is even back, I'll give you a little bit of a timeline. This past year I was in Iraq. I was deployed to Iraq. I came back in August. During my time in Iraq, while I was serving my nation, my opponent betrayed the party, betrayed your vote, And when I came back and I heard about all this that was happening, and again, we want to say this is all political maneuvering. The reason why he has leadership position is because of this political maneuvering. This is the first time, I believe, in history that sitting state representatives have been censured by the Ohio Republican Party. They just lost their party endorsement. So when you're asking me if this is a speaker issue why I'm running, I don't believe it's a speaker issue. I believe it's an issue on integrity and what I see out of our elected officials.
I'm going to stop you there because our timer should have been reset to 1 minute, not 2 minutes. So we'll
I'm good there. I think I kept that pretty clear.
And we will move on.
Mr. Could we get a chance to rebut that since you brought me up real quickly?
If
30
you
seconds.
would like.
30 seconds. First, we didn't lose any endorsement. Okay, the Republican Party at a county level does not endorse in the primary, and at the state level, they decided not to endorse legislative candidates. They also didn't endorse Jim Hoops and our assistant majority whip, who had nothing to do with who's voting for speaker or not voting for speaker. Again, when words matter, I just asked my opponent, he thinks he's going to tell one side of the story of what happened at the state Republican Party. The endorsements that matter to me are the Ohio Right to Life endorsement, the Ohio Chamber endorsement, the Buckeye Firearms Association endorsement, the NRA endorsement, National Small Business endorsement. Those organizations and those memberships are the only ones that endorse me in this race. So if you want to worry about whether a state party did or didn't endorse in candidates, what I like to talk about is my record of work and the people seeing my record of work and those organizations and those memberships endorsing my race. I'm proud to have those endorsements and the only candidate in this race to have those endorsements.
Chris,
and
am
Mr.
I
Matthew,
allowed to respond? All right, thank you. Again, I'll ask, this is the first time in history any of this has happened. That's a big deal when the Ohio Republican Party votes not to endorse an incumbent. Again, I stand by what I said. Look it up. Again, I would then ask the Ohio Right to Life endorsement. I would ask my opponent, why is he not endorsed by the local party, the local Right to Life crowd? I have the endorsement of the Ohio Right to Life Coalition with the support of the local Right to Life Coalition. So yes, we can tout our endorsements, and I'm proud to tout my endorsements, and I'm sure you're going to be very impressed with one coming down the road. But again, I'm not here to talk endorsements. I'm here to talk about how we can serve the community, and I'm proud to have my community endorsements with these value-driven organizations.
Well, Chris, let me explain something on the endorsement. The Ohio Right to Life organization, they've endorsed in some races 2 candidates, both the incumbent and the non-incumbent. In this race, I think my opponent's not being very truthful. They did not endorse my opponent in this race because of his statements that he made on medical freedom. There's a document that was floating around about how he is for choice. He is for medical choice. And that doesn't sound like a very pro-life statement to me. So I'm not familiar with the local chapters. The only local chapter I know is there's a local Toledo Ohio Right to Life chapter. There is no Hancock County Ohio Right to Life chapter, but the state organization has made a clear difference between me being the pro-life candidate who has supported the heartbeat bill, has supported pro-family and pro-adoption legislation on record, voting, and my opponent putting out pro-choice statements from the Medical Freedom Association, whoever they are, and whatever liberal organization that is. So there's a real difference between who's endorsing who in this race. When it comes to pro-life, we are the pro-life candidate in this race.
Mr. Matthews?
Yeah, we talk about experience, and I'm shocked that this is the amount of experience that I'm hearing tonight. Is the Ohio, when we talk about medical freedom, that is talking about your choice to whether you vaccinate your child or not. So to make that sound like that this is a choice of a pro-life issue, I mean, you just got to do your research. And that's why my message is to everyone out there that's listening. Do your research. Look at my endorsements. The medical freedom is about you making the decision for your child on whether they can receive a vaccine or not. And I'm sorry for the folks out there that are involved with the local Right to Life community out here. I do see you, and I am your voice.
We're going to take a break briefly and come back with cover more ground with both Ty Matthews and John Cross, candidates for the Republican primary for the 83rd District seat, the Ohio House of Representatives, in tonight's candidate forum on 1330 WFIN, WFIN.com, and 95.5 FM.
Your news authority is 1330 WFIN. And now at 95.5 FM.
The Hancock County Republican Party wants to remind you to join them for their first Friday luncheons. Enjoy a great meal, network with fellow Republicans, and listen to a featured speaker. Lunches are held at the Findlay Moose Lodge, number 698. Meal is served at 11:30 and the program starts at noon. March 1st, candidates for state representative, 83rd Ohio District. April 5th, City of Findlay update from Mayor Byrne. May 3rd, Hancock County update from commissioners. Please support local, state, and national candidates. For more info, go to HancockCountyGOP.org.
Your first look at business and the business of life happens each weekday morning on WFIN. Hi, this is Gordon Deal, inviting you to join me at 5 a.m. for This Morning, America's First News. We'll give you the top money and business news and information about managing your money and retirement savings. Plus, there's the latest on technology, e-commerce, careers, health, entertainment, and much more. This Morning, weekdays at 5 a.m. And check out the weekend edition Saturday mornings at 5 on 1330 WFIN, WFIN.com, and now at 95.5 FM.
Take WFIN wherever you go with our updated mobile apps for iPhone and Android. And now you can listen to us on your Alexa device. Get the app at WFIN.com or in the App Store or Google Play. Plus, enable Alexa by searching for WFIN under Skills, and you'll soon be saying, Alexa, play 1330 WFIN. And the best part is the apps and skills are absolutely free. On the air at 1330 WFIN and 95.5 FM. Online at WFIN.com and on your smartphone, tablet, and Alexa devices.
This is WFIN News Director Matt Demchek with a reminder that when you see news happening, call our news tip line at 419-422-2056. That's 419-422-2056. Your news authority, 1330 WFIN, WFIN.com, and 95.5 FM.
Your news authority is 1330 WFIN. And now at 95.5 FM.
Welcome back to tonight's candidate forum. This evening, we're speaking with the two individuals running in the Republican primary for the 83rd District seat in the Ohio House of Representatives, incumbent John Cross and challenger Ty Matthews. Before the break, the topic of abortion came up. Let me expand on that just a moment. Both of you, obviously, as you have stated, claimed endorsements by prominent pro-life groups, Mr. Cross by the Ohio Right to Life PAC, Mr. Matthews by the Right to Life Action Coalition of Ohio. Given that last year voters approved a ballot measure placing the right to abortion in the state constitution, what does a pro-life agenda look like in the state legislature? And we'll begin with Mr. Cross.
Well, thank you very much. First, just because the state of Ohio went that way, Hancock County and Hardin County was opposed to where the state ended up. At the end of the day, that doesn't mean that we stop giving up on life. We are going to continue to try everything we can do to protect life. But where I think the Republican Party can continue to excel is let's take care of you also when you're living. You know, there are too many babies and mamas out there and infant mortality where we can do a better job of making sure that when there was a shortage of formula, trying to take care of babies. We also need to think about the whole life of perspective, even with adoption. I was pleased to pass in one of my 12 bills I got signed into law, the Family Forward Act, which allows families to complete adoptions if they fall short on funding. Who knew that adoptions could cost up to $50,000? It's a lot of money. And so we passed this that would give low interest rates, which is timely given interest rates are very high right now, to families to access capital to complete those adoptions. There are a lot of things that we can do while we are trying to protect the unborn, that we need to protect the born and protect as many people as we can through the whole aspect of their natural given life. So I think that is a winning message that Republicans need to do, not only here in Ohio, but across the country on a winning message. It's a pro-family, pro-adoption, pro-life message, and we're pleased to be supporting that type of legislation in the Ohio House over the last 3 terms and 6 years.
Mr. Matthews, again, what does a pro-life agenda look like for you in the state legislature?
Right. I believe we're going to all probably agree here in the room that we never stop fighting for life. And though November may have been a big hit to us in the pro-life community, that should strengthen our resolve to keep and continue fighting. Right now, I believe that we should be looking at abortion, I think as the Republican Party, as a heart issue, right? I think we all look at this as a symptom of an illness, and we keep trying to treat a symptom rather than the illness. So I'd like to actually sit down and let's see what we can do. In the military, we call it to the right or left of the bang. You hit the bomb, and we all keep talking about why do we hit the bomb? Why was it just the bomb? Well, let's talk about how we can prevent abortions going forward. And that's done through the community. That's done through every one of us here in this room reaching out to these young women, even before they get pregnant, on preventative measures, but also care during the pregnancy. And we have a great resource right here in our community, the Women's Resource Center. I believe during these times, we prop them up and we try to reach people that are struggling with this hard and terrible decision.
In that same election last year, Ohio voters also approved a measure legalizing recreational marijuana in the state. Although that law is now in effect, the legislature has been extremely slow to put in place a framework to regulate its sale and distribution. What should that framework look like, and should this be a higher priority for lawmakers? And we'll begin with Mr. Matthews.
Yes, I'm a small government conservative. And that's what I believe is defined as a traditional conservative. That means less government and more liberty. Looking at this right now and how this law is passed, I think we need to look at how this is securing the liberties for ourselves, but also our posterity, the future generations. What are we doing that is going to benefit the future generations? And currently right now, looking how we can tighten up that law where we make it less accessible for youth to acquire this drug, looking at how I believe, don't quote me on this, but how it's currently written, the amount that you can possess and grow within your home is kind of contradictory. I think the amount that you have, plants that you own, the amount that bud that produces, you're going to be constantly in violation of the amount of ounces that you could have on a person. I think that's just bad law. It's just bad legislation getting passed where you see the criminal justice system is just going to have to struggle between the amount of ounces that someone has as they're growing that. So I think looking at this from a small government standpoint, we look at it how we can restrict the access to the youth. And again, I do not believe introducing a mind-altering substance to the community is the right direction to go.
Mr. Cross.
Well, first and foremost, even though I might personally have been against issue 2 and allowing marijuana to become legal in Ohio, the first thing is you can't circumvent the will of the voter. Okay, my opponent, we didn't pass any legislation. The voters voted on it. What we are doing now in the legislature, because it wasn't a constitutional amendment, we have to put a couple, some meat on the bone around this legislation so this gets enacted. First, we need to make sure that we don't circumvent the will of the voter. I said that once, I'm saying it twice because the Senate and the governor wanted to rush legislation and try to circumvent the will of the voter. We're not going to do that in the Ohio House. We're going to take our time and get it right. If the governor wants to be in a rush, I'll ask the governor to sign an executive order. He has the power to sign executive orders, and if he wants to put temporary laws in place, then he can do that. He hasn't done it yet. But if that's something he wants to do, he can do that. Secondly, taxes. If you overtax this, we're just going to create a larger black market. Okay, in California, Nevada, and Colorado, where this is happening, number one, there's uncontrollable vomiting that's happening because if you smoked marijuana in the 60s, it ain't the marijuana today that you smoked in the 60s. So you're going to go to the ER for smoking a lot of marijuana that's probably higher potent than it was when you smoked it in the 60s. Number two, taxes. How do we get the right tax structure? And then what do we do with the taxes? One of the ideas we floated around in the Ohio House is to redirect those taxes right back to law enforcement so it can support law enforcement and support our new jails that are trying to be funded in our local communities so the taxpayer doesn't have to feel the burden of supporting local jails. And then number three, safety. For my two boys sitting here in the front row, I want to make sure that they don't have access to gummies and all the different candies that are out there associated with marijuana. So taxes, safety, and not circumventing the will of the voter as we put the final touches to legislation is what I recommend to solve this issue.
Let's move on to the issue of education. Last week, Representative Michelle Grimm introduced House Bill 411, an education bill that, among other things, would raise the minimum base salary for teachers in the state of Ohio from $35,000 a year to nearly $50,000 a year. Do you support that measure? Why or why not? And what are your priorities for raising the quality of public education in the state? And we'll begin with Mr. Cross.
Yeah, great question. So yes, I do support this because in the budget, it was the Ohio House that actually moved the base salary from $30,000 a year to $35,000. We actually tried to negotiate with the Senate and went to $40,000. The Senate said no. There's a trend here, I think, tonight. The Senate's not doing what we in the House want, so we keep fighting for what we want in the House. And they brought it back down to 35. Listen, I'm a practical politician. When you go talk to any of our superintendents, the first thing they say is, John, I can't find bus drivers. I can't find teachers. If we're going to pay people to be bus drivers, we got to get them educated with CDL training. If you want more teachers to come to this community, we got to give them a really good wage so they can afford to live here in this beautiful town that we live in. And so I think what we're doing is working on a state budget that moves the base minimum. Then it allows our local school boards to make the final decisions of how they should pay for performance and pay for their teachers to try to continue to recruit the best teachers we can get here in Findlay, Ohio.
Mr. Matthews.
Going forward, my stance on education is I'm pro school choice, and that means the backpack bill. I think we need to start looking at this issue at the core. I believe we are starting to love institutions more than we love the product of those institutions. I'm a proud Arlington Red Devil. I really am. But if that school's not producing students that can perform in the workforce, we're failing. I think we need to look at that rather than just specifically raising the income of a teacher. I think this is way more of a systemic issue within our state that we need to get right. Again, it goes back to securing the blessings of liberties for ourselves, but our future generations, our posterity. And going forward, I think that is, it's clear to me, it's the backpack bill, school choice. Well, making that look as a free market of competition, schools competing with one another, private and public, on a fair playing field. Because I believe in competition, and competition breeds excellence.
Mr. Cross, want to
I have an
follow up on that?
First off, you got to read the backpack bill. The problem when I first co-sponsored the bill, it's like, this is great. I support school choice, but you start to really understand what really is school choice. What I support is parents' rights. School choice in Hardin County is what Friday night football team you want to go to, because we don't have a Catholic school in Hardin County. School choice for Hardin County and Hancock County is you have very limited school choice options. Our youngest son goes to St. Mike's because we want him to continue to enjoy his Catholic faith. We put our 7th grader in Donnell because he loves robotics and engineering. They had great programs. It's parents' rights. That's what matters. The backpack bill is when you dig in through the bill and you read the bill, the backpack bill is going to charge you $2 billion in new taxes. They were going to defund the public schools. So Arcadia, Findlay, all the schools in Hancock County and Hardin County were going to get defunded, and all that money was going to go to Columbus, Cleveland, and Cincinnati inner city schools. What we did appropriately in the budget is vouchers, making sure that parents who need access to dollars and vouchers could move their child to the right school for their right needs.
Mr. Matthews.
Yep. Again, do your own research on this. Look into it. Backpackbill.com. Reach out to your state senator. Again, we talked about institutions a lot.
The State House? That's what you're running for. You're running for the House, not the Senate. You're running for the House, not the Senate.
This is my time, Chris.
Yep.
Am I wrong?
Yep.
Again, this goes back to institutions, right?
It's just a vote for Huffman in the Senate. I get it.
Mr.
Cross. Are we good, Chris? Again, this goes back to what I said at the beginning. It's institutions that we are caring for instead of the product that we are producing. I am generally completely opposed to any tax increase. But what if there was a tax increase that's associated with this?
There is.
What better way and what better thing to increase our taxes on is investing into our future and our kids. Listen, I believe it's very short-sighted right now to think that since our community doesn't have a problem, it's not going to be an issue here. I think we should be proactive in giving you the right to choose where you send your kids.
Chris, what my opponent just said tonight in rebuttaling that is that he is for a $2 billion tax increase. And he just told everybody tonight that he doesn't think teachers should get more money. Opposite of where I am. I think teachers deserve good salaries, and we'll let the local school boards make those decisions based upon where we think the base minimum should be so they can live a great lifestyle and afford to live in our communities. And number two, we don't need a $2 billion tax increase on top of the school funding formula that we finally made constitutional, where the Supreme Court said you finally got it right. After many years, since 1996, we've been running school funding formulas that were unconstitutional, and we finally got it fixed. So I think there's a clear difference between tonight of someone who's going to support our public schools in the 83rd District, support our teachers, support our children, and those who want to raise your taxes by $2 billion and tell teachers, sorry, you're out of luck, we're not going to give you any more money. Clear difference in my eyes.
Mr. Matthews, final word.
Again, I'm going to be clear and concise about this. Do your own research. Call your senator, call your House state. Well, I would recommend calling someone outside of your district that is a state rep at this point. Again, I would look at where I follow the money. Again, we'll probably touch this later on. I believe that we need to invest in the future generations. I do not believe in a tax increase. And if we are going to increase taxes on this, maybe that's a great way to segue into where else can we cut taxes from? Because we have so many taxes, so much grant money coming back that is perceivably just coming out of nowhere. Maybe this is a great way that we can start addressing these other issues. And again, do your own research. I am not here to raise your taxes. The backpack bill doesn't. Again, I'm going to represent you in Columbus. That doesn't mean I blindly just accept the status quo of what the backpack bill is. There's many great individuals in here today that we can sit down and work this thing out. And again, at the core, I believe in school choice and giving you the power to send your kids where you want to send them.
Since we have broached the subject of taxes, Mr. Cross, you have repeatedly touted your efforts to move Ohio toward the elimination of the state income tax and the commercial activities tax. This is not a new idea and one that has met significant resistance in the past. Explain how you will continue to push this idea through the legislature if elected to another term.
In Tennessee, in 2016, they had zero income taxes and lower sales taxes in Ohio, and they had billions of dollars in carryover because they had people flourishing to their state. No secret, we want to get rid of your state income taxes. We want to put more money that you work hard for every day back in your pocket. We want to be competitive in the state of Ohio. Texas, Tennessee, Utah, Nevada, no state income taxes. Where do you think someone's going to go right here in town when they work for Marathon and pay Ohio income taxes, but then when Marathon has other states that have zero income taxes, where do they want to go? Ohio needs to be a zero income tax state so we can stay competitive. Now, Chris, to answer your question, you asked me on the morning show, well, how do we get more taxes? You bring more people here. You widen the tax base. You give them a reason to come here. When I started this journey 6 years ago, we had 7% income tax. Now it's 2.75% if you make less than $100,000, 3.9% if you make over $100,000, zero if you make $26,000 or less. We are on our way. Can we do it overnight? No, because it would cause somewhere between an $11 to $20 billion gap in the state budget, and you'll start to affect other major priorities of our state budget. But over the next several years, I think we can get to zero to stay competitive. Again, we had a $700 million carryover. We're reducing our income taxes. We got rid of or reduced the commercial activity tax. Once again, probably the reason why we're getting support from the Ohio Chamber and the NFIB being their legislator of the year is because we're helping it make easier to start a business here, to do business here. People work hard every single day to start their business. We work really hard every day to make sure that Marathon and Cooper's Tire stay right here in Ohio. It would do none of us good if we continue to lose business on Main Street, big or small. And so we fight like hell down there in Columbus to make sure that people could pay less taxes as possible and get really good services.
And Mr. Matthews, do you support the elimination of the state income tax and commercial activities tax, and how would your approach differ, if at all?
Yeah, I do. I apologize for this, but I think We've had a supermajority in the Ohio House and Senate for the last decade, essentially, and I don't know why it hasn't gotten done yet. I just think it's kind of funny how all of a sudden we get closer to election season, this stuff gets brought up. I mean, this could have been done 6 years ago. So if you're asking me if I support eliminating the income tax, absolutely. I mean, I don't know. I think we're all Republicans in here, and I'm not sure if there's anyone that would disagree with that. I would just point out, we've had a supermajority. It should have already been done.
Chris, let me follow up on that, because I think it's important. This shows the difference between an experienced legislator and someone who may not have the experience. It might be easy for my opponent to sit there and say, well, it's election year, you should have got it done. An $11 to $20 billion gap in the budget means that if he would do that maneuver, the three largest things in our budget that take up 75% of our budget, and the way to learn how our budget works in Ohio, 75% is education, prisons, and Medicaid. If we were to cut $20 billion, 75% of this room is going to lose Medicaid. We're going to lose money for law enforcement and prisons, and a lot of kids will not have great schools to go to because it would affect that budget. What you do smartly, wisely, and well is you stretch this over a long period of time, tell the constituency this is our objective, and we have a bill right now that says by 2030 we're going to try to eliminate state income tax without affecting prisons, education, and your Medicaid. And I think that's the wise thing to do.
Response? Mr.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I would phase out the income tax. I don't know what was misunderstood from what I said earlier. Again, I would just point out we've had a super majority here in Ohio for the last 6 years. If this was something that they wanted to get done and they were passionate about getting done, it would have gotten done, especially under the great leadership of Jason Stevens. You know, apparently when you make deals with the Democrats, 22 Republicans make deals with the Democrats, I don't think that's a great chance you're going to phase out the income tax.
Let me actually expand on that, because this is where I wanted to go next with this, with respect to getting things done in the state legislature. There is certainly little doubt that Ohio is a solidly red state and becoming more so each election cycle. But if elected, you will be working alongside duly elected Democrats in other districts around Ohio. So my question, what does compromise in the state legislature look like to you? What does working with the other side of the aisle look like to you? And we'll start with Mr. Matthews.
I believe it's empathy. It's coming to the table. You know, my job is to represent the 83rd House District. That means sitting at the table with all views. No matter if we disagree, it is my job to hear you out. Also, my job is to come back to the district with information to maybe further refine that view. But with working with Democrats, again, it's coming to the table. It's not alienating anyone. We may disagree with one issue, but if we break and we burn that bridge on that one issue because I blow up on you out of outrage, I mean, that ruins that relationship to work on anything else in the future. I believe here in our community, Democrats and Republicans together, we agree on quite a bit. But too many times we get caught up on these ooh-wow issues that we refuse to come to the table and to move this community forward. So I am absolutely willing to work with Democrats, Republicans, any political view. But again, I have my principles that I will stand by and I will never forsake.
Mr. Cross.
Chris, I would just maybe guess that 80-90% of the bills that we pass in the Ohio House are passed in a bipartisan way. The budget is passed in a bipartisan way. The single most important document we do is the budget. Matter of fact, you could send us home for 18 more months after the budget's done. We don't have to do anything else constitutionally. Matter of fact, I tell people all the time jokingly, if you see me at the grocery store, I'm saving you a lot of money by not passing more regulations and more bills by being in Columbus. The more time we're home, the better it is for you. Like Texas, they get their legislature done in about a month, and that's probably enough. But that doesn't mean we give up our principles. So when we talk about being the pro-gun legislator, the pro-life legislator, there are things that are not negotiable. There are things that will never be negotiable. And that's why we have to continue as Republicans to stand together and unite And the bigger picture is, what are we doing to win against Democrats and liberal philosophies like wokeism and CRT and DEI, stuff that I never even thought I'd be talking about, like bathroom bills, and overriding the governor's veto, our own Republican governor who vetoed our bill, House Bill 68, that would protect women's sports. Duh. Guys can't play in girls' sports. Pretty simple. We're also overriding to make sure that parents have rights in the room. So when you go see a doctor, I guarantee Carson and Connor, when they go in there and see their doctor get their flu shot, Mom and I are in the room. We're making sure that they're getting the right decisions for them. So a lot of things are not negotiable because we stand behind our party, we stand behind our principles, and the other 80-90% of the legislation we do for the good of Ohio is in great negotiations and great debate in a bipartisan way.
And with that, we will move on to closing statements, and we will begin with Mr. Matthews.
Again, thank you for coming out tonight. Again, I appreciate the dialogue we are able to have up here in this country. It's why I love this country. You know, just coming back from Iraq, this is not exactly how things get done. And I just want to tell everyone out there, there's going to be a lot of information that gets pushed. I would say a lot of misinformation that gets pushed. I think a lot of Republicans, a lot of Democrats, a lot of people are tired of politicians and people saying one thing and doing another. I ask you, don't take my word for it. I'm going through a transition right now where I'm now called a politician. That's never happened since, this past year, since August. So don't take my word for it. And I ask you, don't take my opponent's word for it. Do your research and look it up. And again, there's going to be a lot of messaging about leadership, about experience. And I'll tell you this, I will take my experience serving my country and my nation 100% of the time than over my opponent's when he sold out our party and our community in January and is now currently censured by the Ohio Republican Party and lost his Ohio Republican Party endorsement because of that. Again, I'm here to represent you. There's the word representative. The word represent is also in that. So no matter your background, no matter your political persuasion, I will always come to the table and I will try my best to always have my phone, my email, and whatever means that you can communicate with me, I will always be there for you. Thank you very much, and God bless you all.
Mr. Cross.
Yeah, thank you. In our closing 2 minutes, we'll begin where we left off in the opening. Part of what I wanted to tell you tonight was I've got 3 priorities. My 3 priorities are not what I want to do. The 3 priorities are what my district wants. They want me to continue to lower taxes, which we talked about tonight. We need to continue to work on economic and workforce investment opportunities. I see a lot of local elected officials here, council members, commissioners. They need help with infrastructure dollars. They need help with funding. The more we can have build-ready sites and opportunities to bring more business and economic growth here to Hancock County, the more the state can help the locals. That's what we want to do. And last, safety. First, we need to elect President Trump to close our border and get our border in check. Number 2, we need to start working on ways that we can continue to make our community safe, to continue to support our law enforcement's needs, from personnel to training to tools that they can be effective. So we have a lot to do. It has been a great honor to serve you the past 6 years. I'm asking you, if you were a coach on the sidelines, and this is a football game, and your quarterback is throwing touchdowns, now is not the time to trade out your quarterback. We are a member of leadership. We have an opportunity to have a seat at the table to make decisions and really drive a positive opportunity for Hancock County. And I'm asking for your vote. Believe it or not, most people don't know this yet, early voting starts this Wednesday. So we're going to be out there asking for your vote the next 30 days. And the election day is March 19th. I'm asking you one more time, and since you only can be here for 8 years total or 4 2-year terms, hire me one more time to be that compassionate, tough, conservative voice for you in Columbus who will bring back the results and get the job done for you. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you for joining us this evening. We'd also like to thank the candidates for taking a part in this evening's forum, and a reminder that the deadline to register to vote in the March primary is tomorrow. Early in-person and absentee voting begins on Wednesday, and Election Day itself is Tuesday, March 19th. Please join us next week for the third of our forums featuring the three candidates hoping to win the Republican nomination for Hancock County Sheriff. Until then, I'm Chris Oakes. Good night.
Thanks for joining us for tonight's Political Forum.
Tonight's forum has been presented